Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Lions Grid. This is a Tuesday episode of our recap episode. And we'll be breaking down the Jacksonville Jaguars Detroit Lions game that happened 2 days ago now on Sunday. Lions getting that win in that game, and some impressive things in that game. They won the game 40-14. But before we hop into the details of the game, just want to remind everybody that this is the Lions Grid, and we are coming live to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Whichever one of those platforms happens to be your favorite, make sure you go ahead and like, subscribe, and follow to keep up to date with our latest episodes. If you like what we do here on the show, it's the best way to help the channel grow. So we appreciate your help in that regards. So without further ado, let's dive in. Both of the teams in this game, as we talked about in the the pregame episode. This is an important game for them. Both of them still mathematically alive in the playoff hunt, and needing to get wins here because they don't have the best odds of making the playoffs. But you get a win here against an opponent, a team in a similar position to you, definitely helps your chances as you try to do something that's very difficult and make the playoffs when you have a losing record, trying to play catch up there. So for one of these two teams, thankfully for those of you who are fans of the Detroit Lions, it was the Lions coming out on victory, and they were the team that I picked to win. So I think that's the first time this season I have picked the Lions to win the game, and they've done so. So very happy that that was the case, and the jinx has been broken. And really, this was a game the Lions dominated, and I think that says a lot about the Lions because it wasn't that long ago where I and I think others had written them off and said really the only thing they had to play for this season was a high draft pick. They're still going to get a high draft pick thanks to the LA Rams, who I did see in a sort of side note did just sign Baker Mayfield, who was released by the Carolina Panthers. They picked him up on wires, and they will have Baker Mayfield, and he could potentially start this Thursday for him. So that'll be interesting. But still, even with Baker coming in there, still should get a pretty high pick out of the Rams and still have an opportunity for the Lions to make the playoffs in the NFC. Like I said, they dominated this game. They had 31 first downs to 14 from Jacksonville. They had, from a time of possession standpoint, they possessed the ball for 36 minutes and 50 seconds compared to 23 minutes and 10 seconds for Jacksonville. They outgained them on the offense, 437 yards, 266. And it was really just a really good game for the Lions. They were also very good on third downs, thanks in a large part to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The Lions went 8 for 12 on third downs in getting first down. So the Lions played really good, really good. And we'll take a look at some of the individual efforts in that Week 13 win that helped the Lions get there in just a moment. But overall, feeling really good about the Lions' chances. They're still, what I'm thankful for is that instead of being another one of those seasons where the season was over months ago, we are headed towards the end of the season. There's 5 games left, and there's still compelling reasons to watch the Lions play. And it's not just to see them lose and get a higher draft pick. There is a road, a path for them to make the playoffs. It is still a long shot, and like I have been saying this entire time, I don't necessarily know if they can do it because what it requires them to do now, they got the first win that they needed, but they need to get essentially 6 consecutive wins. They need to win their next 5 games to really have a legitimate shot of making the playoffs. And there have only been 2 teams so far this season who have had 6-game winning streaks. And so it might be a little bit of a tall task. It's not easy to win 6 straight games in the NFL. But perhaps the Lions can do it. The 2 teams that have done that, and they actually had winning streaks greater than 6 games this season, were the Philadelphia Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. The Eagles, of course, started the season off 8-0, and the Vikings had a 7 straight win streak back from September through mid-November. And one of the teams that the Lions will need to beat to have their own 6-game win streak is the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, if you look at their last 4 games, the Lions are 3-1 over those last 4 games, and lost to the Buffalo Bills on Thanksgiving by 3 points, a game where they could have, almost had a chance to take it to overtime and potentially get a win. against the team that is currently leading the AFC playoff hunt with the Chiefs losing to the Cincinnati Bengals this past weekend. So before we jump in and take a look, you know what? Let's take a look at the individual sort of performers who did really well in this game against Jacksonville and really helped them dominate, and then we'll take a look at what that means for the playoff picture. So without further ado, let's jump in here and let's start with the quarterback, Jared Goff. Look at that, 31 of 41, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a QBR of 115.9. A lot of people have been hating on Jared Goff. Some people still feeling that the team needs to replace him in the offseason. That needs to be a priority. I think it for me, when it comes to Jared Goff, I think has done enough in a Lions uniform to show me that he can certainly be the bridge quarterback between the potential long-term franchise quarterback that comes after Matthew Stafford and himself. So, like, he is certainly adequate enough. He puts the team in position to win games. And over this last month, hasn't been turning the ball over. So he hasn't been losing the game for the team. So he's a quarterback I feel like can do an adequate job of positioning the line so that they can be effective and take advantage of their playmakers and things like that without being a liability to the team. So do I think the Lions need to take their early round pick that they have from the Rams and force that into a quarterback and take maybe, if the right guy's available and they have the pick and they really feel like he is the guy, like he can be that dude, that franchise QB for them, and they have the pick available, certainly I would recommend they take him. But Jared Goff has been playing well enough that I think you don't need to feel obligated to take a quarterback. You don't have to do it. You have a guy who can play well enough so that you can take your time and acquire the right player as opposed to trying to force a square peg in a round hole, which I think is something that's going to be nice for Brad Holmes in this front office. Do I think that 5 years from now, Jared Goff is still going to be the starting quarterback of the Detroit Lions? I do not. I think they'll probably get someone else in there by then. But I think it gives this Lions front office time to make sure that they get their guy and that they don't rush into potentially drafting a QB that they're not comfortable with, that they don't think can be that franchise quarterback moving forward. And I think that's a gift for them. So it takes some of the pressure off them. Again, Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl. He has played well here for the Lions. I don't think you need to rush to get rid of him. But at the same time, I do fully acknowledge that he isn't your franchise QB moving forward. But I think having him is definitely a luxury because it makes it so you don't have to rush. You don't have to try and find, you don't have to take Baker Mayfield, Johnny Mansfield, or what was his name? Manziel. Johnny Manziel. You don't have to go the Browns route where you're just drafting QBs rapid fire, trying to find your next franchise QB. You can take your time, do your due diligence, and find the right guy for your organization. And I think that'll be wonderful for the Lions. So if he's available in this upcoming draft and they can use the Rams pick to get him, fantastic. If they need to sort of wait and try and get him at a different time, they have that option. And I think that gives the Lions a lot of control moving forward, which is great. Of course, we talked about him earlier. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11 receptions, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, he was a big on third down, a big help in helping them convert for first downs late in drives. And really, I know he was the highest rated player on the offensive side of football for the Lions. Just fantastic. Fantastic. He has turned into a real threat on the offense. He is definitely just blowing it up. I think obviously Jameson Williams also made his debut in this game. It was a quiet debut. He did not have a reception in it. But I think, having Amon-Ra St. Brown here, once we start to see, obviously this was his first game, so a good game for Jameson Williams to start getting his feet underneath him, to get up to speed with what the NFL game looks like. As he starts to grow more comfortable, I really think having this duo of St. Brown and Williamson is going to be of in Williams is going to be uh, very good for the Lions moving forward. And I'm excited to see what they can do as a duo moving forward because you know with his speed and St. Brown's ability to get open, um, you're really going to have to be choosing how you're gonna cover, and I think that could be very good, regardless of who's playing QB for the Lions moving forward. You know, having those two weapons is going to be big. Then, I got to give him credit where credit is due. Michael Badgley, the Lions kicker. The kicking game has been a weakness for the Lions throughout the season, but it seems like we finally have some stability there on the special teams. Michael Badgley went 4 for 4 on field goals, 4 for 4 on PATs for a total of 16 points in this game against the Jaguars. He was perfect and looked the part of the Lions starting kicker. So it looks like we finally have some stability there. Kudos to Mike Badgley, and hopefully, there were weeks earlier in the season where Dan Campbell's hand was sort of forced to go for it on, uh, down and short because there wasn't a whole lot of trust in the kicking game. Um, but with Badgley playing the way he has, I think there's some of that trust there now. He has certainly earned that spot as the line starting kicker and really came through for them here in Week 13. Now, one thing I will say is he had 4 field goals in this game. You're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, who after the loss are now 4-8. They're not a very good team. You have a couple of games coming up against better teams, the Vikings, the Jets. In those games, I don't know if you're going to be able to ultimately get a victory if you're kicking 4 field goals as opposed to turning those drives into touchdowns. Because obviously when you score more points, you're putting more pressure on your opponents. When you're getting the field goals, and you're giving the ball back to, say, the Vikings offense with Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and of course TJ Hawkinson, Kirk Cousins can make some things happen. And those games go a little bit differently because of the talent and skill of your opponent. You really want to be turning those field goals into touchdowns. And that's something that the Lions are going to need to look to improve on as they play some teams of higher caliber. But certainly it was enough for them to take down the Jaguars in this game, who was a team about on par with, I'd say, the Lions. And it's great to see the Lions take that step and beat them. And we'll take a look at what that means for their playoff push here in just a moment. But then got to give kudos to the defensive side of the ball. James Houston tied Aiden Hutchinson for the most career sacks, or the most sacks in their first 2 career games, equalizing him at 3. So both players getting 3 sacks in their first 2 games of their careers as Lions. And really, shout out to Brad Holmes and this Lions coaching staff, because you've seen these rookies, particularly on the defensive side of the football, now step up between Hutchinson, Houston, Rodriguez, Joseph. You're really seeing a lot of this talent that was drafted for the Lions defense perform very well. And I think that is something that should be called out and applauded, because these rookies are contributing. And of course, you expect Hutchinson to as the number 1 pick, but it's happening with a number of players. And seeing them start to show up and really changing the narrative about this Lions defense that has been, one of the weaknesses throughout the season. Their play is elevating that defense and really starting to turn them in from what was a weakness into at least, a neutral element. So great to see that. Great to seeing these young players step up. And it's pretty exciting stuff, and it speaks again a lot about what the front office is doing, and sort of has me excited for them moving forward. Before we sign off for today, we will take a look here at the playoff picture. So we're going to go ahead here and take a look. As mentioned, specifically, we'll look at the NFC side of things. But there's still 7 playoff spots left. Of course, your leaders of the different divisions in the East, you got the Eagles. In the North, the 10-2 Vikings. The Niners currently sit on top of the West, and the Buccaneers, with a win over the Saints at 6-6, are currently first place in the NFC South. Our three teams in for the wild card spots are the Dallas Cowboys at 9-3, the New York Giants at 7-4-1, and the Seattle Seahawks at 7-5. The lines moved up a spot. The Falcons dropped two spots, uh, and you can see here just above them is Washington. So there are technically two teams ahead of the Lions in terms of a wild card spot. They are very much in the hunt on the bubble looking in. But again, if they can do sort of the unexpected, if they can go on a 6-game winning streak here, it will put them in really great shape to make the playoffs because they have the head to head tiebreaker over Washington. They have the head to head tiebreaker over the Giants. Now, Seattle does have the head to head tiebreaker over the Lions, and they will be playing the Packers again. So, a chance to keep a team that's right below them down with a victory at Lambeau. Not an easy task for the Lions, but something they can do, I feel, this season. They're really right here in the hunt. So if they can continue to win, and I think I think they need to hit that 10-game mark, which means they do need to win the remaining 5 games. I think if they go 9-8, they'll probably find themselves in that sort of eighth, potentially staying in the ninth slot, and be that team that just misses out. So if they can find a way to get 10 wins, especially, Washington and the Giants will be playing each other again this season. Um, I think they have a decent chance of making the playoffs. And it's important to note if we take a look here at their remaining schedule, you know, they have two tough games, I think, here back to back. They're hosting the Vikings, and then they're headed back to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets. They were already there previously in the year where they beat the Giants. Um, but then they have a game again on Christmas Eve against the Panthers. Then they are traveling, or they're hosting the Bears, and then traveling to Lambeau to take on the Packers. The last 3 games, these are 3 games I think they can certainly win. I think like I said, the two toughest games, in my opinion, is this game next week against the Vikings, and then the game against the Jets. The Jets defense has been playing really well. Also, you got to watch out for Mike White in that Jets offense. But really, if they can get through these 2 games, I believe they can win these games, and that would really have them in really good shape as they try to make the playoffs. Because again, they're right here. They're on the bubble, currently in ninth spot. They have a tiebreaker win over head-to-head tiebreaker win over 2 of the teams ahead of them. There's a chance. There is a chance. It's not great odds, but I'm telling you, there's a chance. So we'll have to see what the Lions can do if they're able to take advantage of that opportunity, and see if they can't make it to the postseason. Um, this has been the Lions Grid. My name is Kevin Marhini. I hope you enjoyed today's show. We took a look at the top performers from the Week 13 game against the Jaguars, took a look at what it meant for the playoff push, and certainly we'll be coming to you live on Sunday as the as the Lions take on the Vikings. A lot of NFC North talk, getting my teams confused, but it will be the Lions playing host to the Minnesota Vikings at Ford Field. And we'll have to see if they can make it 2 in a row as they take on a pretty tough opponent in Kirk Cousins and that Minnesota Vikings crew. So, and also I haven't mentioned him, but Zadarius Smith is just a beast. How the Packers let him go is crazy because there have been a couple times this season where he has just made some really ridiculous plays for the Vikings. And the Vikings aren't a bad defense without him, but with him, he just elevates that team. So, certainly not going to be an easy task. I think I said the Jets game was going to be difficult too, but I think this game against Minnesota, this is sort of going to be that make or break game. And I do think the odds are against the Lions in this game, but they did only lose by 3 earlier in the season when they played them. By 4, and that was at Minnesota. So bringing it back to Ford Field, a chance to go split the series 1-1. And really, we've said it before in past seasons of the Lions Grid. If you want to make the playoffs, the best way to do it is to beat your division opponents. And so a chance here to take down the current NFC leaders. And we'll have to see if the Lions can continue their positive momentum and get that win, advance the win streak to 2. Again, this has been Kevin Marhoney. We're here on the Lions Grid, coming live to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. As always, if you enjoyed the show, please help the channel grow. Best way to do that is to like, subscribe, and follow us on the channel of your choice, or sorry, the platform of your choice. Showing your support by doing those three things really helps us out, and we really appreciate it. Again, I've Kevin Marhoney. This has been the Lions Grid. We'll catch you during the next episode on Sunday. See ya.